Okay, we're going to do a simple protocol that is in your folder. That's called week 2. Week 1, if you got the updated photo. That talks about the 12 points. And when we introduce this energy, like if you experience it from me or anybody else, when you start doing the work with others, the most important thing is to introduce them to the 12 points. And what the 12-point introduction is now the protocol. I want to make sure that we address this when you start doing the work. If you're doing it on yourself or if like couples are working on it, before you start doing hands-on, make sure you sit in the energy for 15 minutes by yourself, and just get the saturation in your body before you start moving into hands-on work. Because that's one of the things that if you move right into hands-on, there's no settle point. That 15 minutes of sitting in the energy before interaction is very important. It makes it totally different in the experience because, it's called winding. You have to wind down. You have to come and you find your center. And that's the most important part. So it doesn't matter what technology you have. Of course, this is the SE. As you can see, this is our smallest but very powerful device, and 3 of you are leaving with this tonight. I don't think anybody else in here actually has one. It's all larger technologies. But this one is a very powerful tool, and it pretty much does everything that the other ones do. But you could do every method. All the technologies in the Lifestream do the same thing. There's just higher thresholds of energy, deeper aspects to it. But once we sustain the field, and bring the radiant field up, then we can interact with it. We can do this profound work. So the nice thing about if you have this technology, you just sit, you can put it on your lap, and you just sit with it for 15 minutes. You can, like point it like this and sit with it for 15 minutes. Any way you feel, as long as the body gets saturated with the energy first. Okay, then when you start doing the hands-on protocol, I'm going to ask for a volunteer. Thank you, Meredith.
Oh, wow, okay.
She was the most vocal. So, come on up. We're going to have you stand on the plate. Now, if you look at the first page, the 12-point system, there's a little dialogue if a person hasn't experienced it before. This is like your introduction to them. So you're going to let them know that you're going to do a 12-point transfer with them, which is going to utilize radiant energy. That radiant energy, when I turn on the generator, we're going to be in this field and we'll be able to transfer that through me to you. Don't worry about your metals. And so don't worry about any of that stuff. No, we're not going to address with that. When you start doing this work, everyone that you work with won't have any of these metals on, during it. That's part of the protocol is to be, but during our demonstration, we're not going to worry about it.
You wouldn't mind chalking in front of us.
Yeah, well, no, I'm going to do it to her on purpose. So
Magnify it.
So we're going to do a dry run. So like while the energy is here, she's on the grounding plate, and let's say the technology is on, I'm going to have her hold her hands out like this. And then what I'm going to do is that, because one of the things that when we realize when we're in this field, is this energy is going out about to here. For this technology, it goes out about 6 feet from the source. So it's an ambient field. So and of course, if you're at the tower, that goes out 50 feet. So we have to learn how to gracefully connect with the individual, to make a very pleasurable experience. Because you only have one time to make a good impression. So this is the practice work we're going to do, and I promise you, at the end, you're all going to be masters at it. But it does take time, unless you're a natural at it, which is very rare. So, but there is a cellular science, there's a cellular progression that happens where once your meridians start to flow in this energy, it becomes effortless. And at first you'll be super sensitive to receive the energy, and then at the end you'll be like, give me it all. And that is a very interesting phenomenon to watch. But when the meridic energy starts to flow and it's wide open, everything's connected, and you're vital again, then this energy moves through you effortlessly. And that's always fun to watch. You see the dynamics at the first week to the 6th week. It's pretty impressive. But it still always smiles, so in it. So when we have a person in the field here, and we're going to do this over again, but I wanted to give you a review so you have some practice work, especially like with couples. If you're partnering up, you can introduce this to Leah, you know. And if you get a chance, it's not mandatory to do hands-on work, but I wanted to give that to you in case you do come together, and you can practice on this. So when a person's in the field, what you want to do is you want to always connect with the furthest outside the field. You know, so you establish your connection to the subject first before you connect to the technology. You never want to reverse that, because if you do, and I put my hand on this and I touch her, she's going to get that lightning zap that she wanted me to do, but she really doesn't. You know, and then they're going to be hesitant. They're going to go, wow, what was that? And then you're going to have to explain it. So the key thing is to gracefully connect. And we'll review different techniques on how to do the transfer, you know, over the next weeks. Believe me, it gets deeper, and, you know, and so once you have a person established, we'll explain is like, okay, I'm going to send energy through your meridian system. And each finger has a meridian line. There's like the page in there that shows the meridian lines in your book. And you can actually see the points and where it travels through the body, you know, and where the different meridian lines go. Like this goes into the lungs, like the thumb is like the lung energy. And so once we establish ourselves, we just say, okay, when you start feeling the energy, I just want you to breathe deep and slow. Okay, and then you're just going to slowly, like it's like an ambient field, you're going to slowly bring your hand into it. And you're going to start with one finger, 2 fingers, then you're going to do it the tips, just like I'm doing. And then you add 3. It's like an acceleration. You just keep adding more and more and more until you establish the energy connection. You're always staying connected to the subject.
You never let go of her hand.
No. You know, and so that's one of the key things. So you just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You start with fingertips, and then in the advanced thing, you slowly start bringing your palm down. And then when and I shouldn't explain it anymore than that, but usually by the 4th or 5th session, you can be palm down on someone, and then once the meridians are wide open. But you can't do that right away. So in this aspect, I'm going to turn it on, and we're going to have this. And I'm going to do exactly that. So let's say Meredith, okay, I'm going to start transferring the energy. When you feel the energy flowing through, you just breathe deep and let the energy flow. So we just slowly come down and we start to increase. Are you feeling anything?
Yeah, it's flowing.
All right.
It's like a zap feel, and then it, you know, goes up my, I don't know. It actually doesn't go very, the zap part.
That's fine. All right, so just, again, when I apply the energy, just breathe deep when you feel it.
So whenever you're moving your onto her, you take off your other hand.
Yeah, you always stay connected, you know.
When you move, you take off the.
Yeah,
the
you have to
left hand
disengage from the energy, and then you reestablish. You move
Once
off,
you're in the right
and then I
spot.
take my hand, my other hand, and I connect
Okay.
to the person. So we're always establishing the circuit, because if I just take my hands off and I lift, and then I go to the next, then you can get the capacitive effect. You'll get the discharge.
Okay.
So before you let go, you just transfer the connection to another, you know, your other hand.
Got it.
And the whole body, we start to learn that as an instrument. Yeah, this one here, we got some stuff on.
And
So,
would
and
you
then,
normally tell the person what you're working on?
No.
Instead of, you would.
actually we don't. No, we don't have much dialogue. We want to keep it silent as possible.
Okay.
And the thing is that we just want them to breathe deep and to, you know, just when they feel the energy, just breathe deep and let it flow.
Okay.
Once they start getting into it, when we start advancing the work, you know, the key thing is for them to be able to feel that in their feet.
Are you in the middle or in the?
Yeah, so now we move to the reflexology point, the center of the palm.
Okay.
And we work on the different points there, which are the the organs, the different parts, you know, of the body. And so then we move over, and again, like I just transferred by staying in connection to
One
her.
hand's always on top.
Now, each meridian, when you establish the connection, you do this for about 10 to 15 seconds on each meridian point, unless you get feedback. Blocks, so, but again, this is all you really just
If
want
you
to do.
notice bugs, you could stay on that one longer.
Well, you can't, unless the person's like dancing around.
Right, but I'm saying if you get the
If
vibe
they're going,
that they need it.
then you just lighten up. You say, okay, just take a deep breath, and I think you just lighten up. If you could feel like there's a black meridian, or if they're real sensitive about it. But with this, you just, you just do the protocols. You just do a transfer. You can do like a count in your head, and then you just lift off and go to the next. Always remind them to breathe deep and slow.
Yeah, she's my.
Breathing is super important.
I have a question. If you were to do a slide, you just make sure you have contacts. Because right here you're being stationary.
Yeah,
Right
well,
here, if you were to do something
that's
else.
week 2
Oh.
where we progress. But the first thing is all I really wanted
Do
to
you need
address.
any more?
Well, how did
Would
that
you like
feel?
me to stand here? Oh
Did it feel
yes,
a little-
that was excellent. I mean, as always.
Yeah. Well, the key thing is like when you observe the befores and afters. Of course, if I had a bigger technology up here, it's a lot easier to denote the effects. But usually, after you just do those 12 points, a person usually just drops in. They become very rooted, and that's one of the key things. You'll notice the body language change if you're paying attention to it.
I do feel it. I definitely feel that.
Yeah.
So how do I do that to myself if I don't have anyone to do it for me?
Well, you done.
Okay. Do that
In
one.
about 3 years, I'll have a Lifestream robot that'll do it for you. But I don't know where to get the flesh. We're gonna have to grow that. All right. Well, thank you. Yeah,
Okay,
that's all.
thank you.
Right,
So that would be this.
finally.
So that's the first step. Now, that's the first protocol of introducing it to another person. So like the couples, like if you're going to do the work, you want to follow that. You don't want to ever push it, move past that. You want to hold that space, and that's one of the most important things. Is that we have to manage our subjects to a point, and you never let them get chatty with you to a point. You never let them tell you, do more there. This is part of this because people are really good at that. Trying to take over what they have no idea what's going on, but they think they know better. And so that's why we just learn to hold the space. And so again, if we rush into things, if we go right to neck issues, that person doesn't get the time to drop in. So if you give them the 15 minutes and usually alone, the ideal setup is to have them sitting in the energy by themselves, no distractions. Because they have to, for 15 minutes, they have to check in. If you're in the room, they're gonna ask you questions.
Oh, so I was confused. I thought it was the practitioner that was the one that has to do the 15 minutes. It's the actual subject. Okay, I had it reversed.
Whoa.
She said
You
have
are
to
going to
spend
do,
time on
you're
it.
going to do your 15 minutes.
In the beginning.
Yeah, well, this is part of the work for us. But when we start working with subjects, before you do the 12 points, you want them to be in the energy.
Okay.
For at least, like 10 to 15 minutes is ideal. And alone and by themselves is even better.
Okay.
I found that out by accident.
Okay.
Because I had a person come in that was totally chatterbox, and she was just like, had such a bad day. And I went, and I set the technology up, and she wouldn't stop talking. And so I turned it on, and I said, I'll be back. I just left the room, I went, oh my God. It was like, my ex-wife's best friend. She was just, couldn't stop. And I come back like 15 minutes later, and she's just like, and after that, she had nothing to say. And I was like, whoa, that is a big difference. She was like, oh, you don't believe, and I'm just like, oh. And I was trying to get a word in.
Men and women.
So I just turned it on and said, okay, I'll be back in 15 minutes. Just sit there and breathe. And that 15 minutes, of course it was the clinical, it was the 300. And she just was just like in the zone. She just had a smile on her face, and then I had her stand up. The chatter was gone. So
It's
that's,
a sales pitch for men.
yeah, well that's a profound thing to witness.
The women are like,
And that's the observational effects that you get to see. And that's what we really want to pay attention to. is the effects of others. Especially when we're doing this work, we always want to be the observer. I know you've had people come to your house, and you can see how they connect to that energy. And if you leave them alone, it's even deeper because they have that connection to self. But if we're in a group and we're doing it, there's a lot of distractions. And a lot of people, sometimes you find out that they don't even spend 15 minutes alone sometimes. But you give them that 15 minutes, it's a whole different, there's a balancing that happens, the homeostasis within the mind, a person just drops in. And then you do the 12 points, and then they go into a grounding effect. Now, how does that work? Energy is always naturally flowing. It's producing, and then it always is wanting to reabsorb from where it came from. So that's the reason why energy like this wants to find its way back into the earth. That's the reason why the way that we design it this particular way, it creates a fountain. And that fountain will, the energy will drop off and go to the earth and just reabsorb. That's the reason why it won't stay here. When we turn it off, the energy's gone. I mean, you get a lingering effect, but you don't have that profound field. We'll get into the science later about that. But the key thing is to understand the 12 points and the meridians. And when you look at the illustration of the human body and how they go from the fingertips to the feet. And that grounding effect, because so many people do not barefoot connect themselves to the earth. The electron flow, when we reestablish ourselves, then we get roots back into the earth currents. And that changes your whole perception. You become very present. So, yeah, you had a question.
So if you're preparing, let's say Allison is preparing herself for the day to work with some people with hands-on, and she sits with the machine for 15 minutes.
Right.
How long does that effect last in her? How long does she stay centered in that energy before she has to do it again?
Well, part of this work that we're doing is we're preparing our systems to be able to be the instrument to transfer. So that's one of the key things, is once we get through the initial cellular shift, then we don't, it's very minimal for us to have to do it. If you feel that, your own journey, because when you're in the energy, you're in the energy. So the nice thing about it is that other people that do energy work or healing work out there, this is a non-depleting energy field. It actually feeds both people. And that's why it's called the Lifestream. So people, you can do more and you thrive in it. There's no depletion effect. The problem is that in most cases you get over-energized. You forget to eat. You don't need to eat because the prana effect, it's feeding you until you see food and you go, oh my God, I haven't eaten all day. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow, this tastes so good, And so those are the phenomenons that we can all go through. And I was working like 8 hours a day when I introduced this. I had back to back to back, and people said, oh, you need to take a lunch. I go, I'm not even hungry. I just hydrate. You just drink a lot of water, through it. But you realize you don't need food the same way. Mm-hmm. So I always looked at that.
The perfect keto diet.
Well, when I came back from India, I didn't eat food for a week.
Oh.
Yeah, I just, the energy was feeding me. And it was real interesting. But then I said, you know what? No, I want to eat food again. So I reintegrated myself. But that was a very profound understanding, is that we can absorb energy in many different ways. When you meet people that do that, it changes you. When you're the observer, you actually meet these people that haven't eaten food for years. You're like, you're studying them, they're just like giggling, because they know that you're there to really understand what's going on. You're not seeing them as a deity, you're not bowing to them, you're like going, how is this, And you're looking at it from all aspects, and they just like giggle because they know that you're there to, to seek the knowledge. So that's where you can bring it back. You can bring this knowledge to share with others. So that's where it gets fun.
About the grounding thing, because remember last time I was sitting with him, he didn't ground a whole lot.
Yeah.
I mean, is it a necessary thing that you do when you're doing
No.
it yourself?
No, it's not.
Okay.
The nice thing about it, like, Meredith, can you come back up? Sure. Okay. I'm not going to ground her. Just come over here. Come over here. Hold your hands out again. So I'm just gonna do the work. You feeling any energy?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's
You can
still
still
happening.
transfer it.
Yeah, it's happening.
Yeah, so grounding
Feels kind of the
enhances
same as
the
before.
enhances the experience. So thank you, that's all I
Yeah,
needed
that
you
was-
for. So we can transfer this energy at any time, in any condition. For the highest effect is we follow certain methods. The grounding, of course, if we run cement, you don't need that. If you're on marble floors, you don't need it. If you're in the dirt, you don't need that. You know, so if you're connected to earth, it's much easier. If you're carpet, there's a big insulator here. If you're on wood floor, you know, wood is insulated.
It's what?
It's an insulator.
Okay.
So when we're doing work with others, if you want the deepest effect, then we use the grounding. You know, because when a person's standing there, we're establishing, and we know that this energy is going through the meridian system and slowly opening up wherever any deviations or blockages are, and then eventually the energy makes it into their feet where they feel it. Those meridians in their feet open up. And that's the progressive work. Now remember, you're not going to be doing sessions on people for a while. So right now, I don't want to be too informative because it'll be overwhelming.
Okay.
So, but the 12-step protocol is what we want to start training with, especially in couples or partnering up. You know, we start doing that. And that's,
So you haven't actually named the 12-point meridians.
we call it the 12-point, you know, what is it
Grounding
called?
system.
That was my next question, what are they?
I get
12-point grounding
been
system.
going nonstop for days here. Yeah, it's a 12-point grounding system. And that's one of the key things that, of course, if you're studying the behaviors of the befores, like if we brought volunteers that have never done this before, they just came out and they're all like, you know, just, you know, energetically, you know, doing what they do. You introduce them, 15 minutes in the energy, and then you do the 12-point system on them, they're gonna stand there like this. They're just gonna be completely rooted, you know. That's what we get to watch, you know, we get to witness and experience that.
So that, yeah, that didn't have anything to do with you touching her fingers separately. Or did it?
It has everything to do, yeah.
Yes, there's
Each
a
finger,
protocol. We just
if
have
you
to-
look at the illustration, each finger has a meridian line.
Okay.
And it runs down through the body, and they go to different points. Like this is like goes into the lungs, the thumbs go into the lung channels. You know, so, you know, and then like different points go into, you know, so these are the, you know, the different points that we address. And when you get intuitive, when you start to adapt and see the energy flow, you can see the deviations when you're igniting the meridic system. Because your vision can enhance to that. You know, you'll start seeing where the energy is, where it's lacking, only as far as it's going. This is advanced work, but it does come. You know, and it gets pretty fascinating when you get to that point of understanding. You know, and then of course you can see progress. You can feel it when a meridian system opens. It's like you know, it's like, whoa, what was that? You know, and then all of a sudden, you know, you watch your subject because all of a sudden you'll see a rush of energy when you open up a new channel. So you always want to make sure they breathe. You watch for their, you know, if you see like, you know, all of a sudden they get color, you know, if they get a flush of energy, you know, you just want to pay attention to that because if that channel was blocked for a long time, they might have a profound shift. And so you just might want to sit them down and give them a glass of water and let them balance out. Usually after about 5 minutes, they're ready to go again. But sometimes they can go, whoa, what was that? But you'll get used to that because you'll feel it and you'll know, wow, that was a blocked meridian. Now it's open. That energy that was stagnant in that part of their body is now opened again. And so they're going to have a pretty profound effect from that.
Can I ask you something?
Of course.
So if something happens, because we had some similar stuff going on with
Yes.
the machines that we've had where we got very, very tired
Yes.
and kind of spacey, and I had communicated with you that it felt detoxy.
Yeah.
And you said just drink a lot of water, breathe deep, and it definitely helps. So when you're dealing with somebody, but they have to go and then get in their car and they're feeling kind of spacey, is there enough time to go just here, drink a big glass of water, take a lot of breaths,
Of
and
course.
it'll start to pass? Well, you said you felt spacey the whole day.
Yeah, but I wasn't thinking. I just went and took a nap.
I know, but I'm saying if someone comes to your office, I just wanna know if they're having that reaction, what's the kind of, you
Water.
know, just drink water, sit for 10 minutes out in the lobby and you'll be fine kind of.
Yeah, until they, you know, usually they come back in You know, I've never had anyone leave and have like a car accident or
Oh,
anything.
no, I don't mean that. I just
Yeah.
mean in saying how you might feel for the rest of the day and this and that. Somebody might come in with a lot of blocked up stuff and it's very intense. It's a big detox. It's like any other kind of body work.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we learned, again, that's the reason why we do the progressive aspect.
Right.
If someone says, hey,
You find out.
you know,
what
I've got a
condition
lot of
has
stuff
issues.
going
Yeah,
on,
you find out their
can you
issues.
resolve it all in one session? If
No.
you say that, you're in trouble. You just set yourself up. You know, so you have to say, well, your stuff is progressive. There's no such thing of getting rid of it.
Right.
So this has been building up in your system for 10 years?
Yeah.
And you want me to get rid of it in 30 minutes? I'm sorry, the human system doesn't work that way. There are rules to it.
Okay.
You know, and if we do try to force that effect, then it's a severe trauma that can happen in the mind and
They
body.
might not even
Yeah.
feel that fantastic the next day. It's not like they're
Well,
gonna wake up immediately. There's process.
Right, well, the feeling is that when we understand, like, you know, like again, when we start to articulate issues in the body, it also connected to the personality of the person. You know, this is when we can almost understand why things are happening in the body. If a person's not present, they're constantly in an anxiety state.
Right.
You know, when you're dealing with that, we work to bring that person back into center. So of course, reminding them to breathe is one of the most important things, because most people that are in anxiety are using about 10% of their lung capacity.
Yeah.
They're only bringing in enough oxygen into the body to sustain it, and it's always on the threshold of starving for more.
Okay.
And you can do a simple exercise with most people. When you see that anxiety, you say, well, what I want you to do, I want you to expel all the air in your lungs,
Right.
and I want you to hold it. No air in, air out.
Mm-hmm.
And usually within 10 seconds, they'll go, they start to gasp. You know, if they can go 30 seconds, well, that's great, because that means they're oxygenating and their system's not, going to go into that immediate shock. But if you test a person that's anxiety-based and you tell them to expel and don't let any air in, usually within 10 seconds, you'll watch them spiral. You can see the shift, and you go, wow, you're not using your lungs at all. You're just barely taking in enough oxygen for your body to sustain. So your mind is starving, your organs are starving, so we need to oxygenate. So when you're in this energy, your cells open up, so you're naturally going to oxygenate again. That's amazing if you do like before and afters in the blood work. You can see the oxygen coming back into the blood, and that's always amazing to watch. And I've put people on the the blood ox test before and after, and they go up. They always go up. No one ever goes down. So these are the things that we can do, and witness. But we follow simple protocols. It's a progressive aspect. We never rush anyone through it. No matter how much money they offer, that's if it's a
No,
money
no.
thing, then it's just going to turn into a disaster.
I think most people will listen. It'll be new to them, and they will listen to what you think is right for them.
Right.
But you just have to know how to approach it.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing
I
about
don't
it,
feel people would
the
come out
nice,
of like fix me today. They want to know that you know what you're doing. It's
Right.
new, cool stuff.
well, that's the nice thing about the certification, because you'll feel a lot more confident. You're
Right.
going to understand it. You'll know how to hold the space. You'll know how to answer the questions, and also to introduce it to them. Where it's not a struggle for them, where it's not a financial burden.
Right.
Because you give it to them for free as a gift. You let them experience it, and then they can make a choice if they want to continue.
Right.
That always works. That works so well.
Yes.
You build your clientele basis just by word of mouth from the experiences that one person has. Others are going to they're going to say, oh, go see so-and-so for this work. So that's kind of how it works. Okay, well, we're actually going to officially, we'll take another question, but then this is kind of the end of the workshop. You guys are welcome to stay and play. We got some technology set up. I'll oversee some of if you have any questions on how to do transfers.